They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But mine was served with evidence, witnesses, and the truth no one could deny. My name is Margaret Hayes. I am 72 years old. And this is the story of how I lost everything to my own blood, and how I took it all back without raising a single hand. I sit here today in a small rented room, with walls that have heard my tears and my triumphs. The evening light filters through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. My hands, wrinkled and worn, hold a cup of coffee that has long gone cold. But I don't mind. Cold things don't bother me anymore. I've learned to make peace with them. My name is Margaret Hayes. I was once a woman who had everything. A beautiful home, a loving husband, and a son I would have died for. Today I have very little in terms of material wealth, but I have something far more valuable: my dignity, my truth, and the satisfaction of knowing that karma, with a little help from me, always finds its way. Let me tell you my story. It's not a pleasant one, but it's real. And perhaps somewhere in my pain, you'll find a lesson, a warning, or maybe just the comfort of knowing you're not alone. My story begins 45 years ago when I married Robert Hayes. We met at a church social in Portland, Oregon. Robert was a high school teacher, a man of principle and kindness. We didn't have much, but what we had we built together, brick by brick, dream by dream. Our son, Daniel, was born 3 years into our marriage. I remember holding him for the first time, his tiny fingers wrapping around mine, and thinking that this was the meaning of life. This small, fragile being was my entire universe. I promised him silently that day that I would give him everything, protect him from every harm, love him beyond measure. And I kept that promise. Perhaps too well. Robert and I worked tirelessly. He taught at the local high school, and I worked as a seamstress from home, doing alterations and custom work. We saved every dollar we could. We bought a small plot of land on the outskirts of the city. Over the years, as Portland expanded, that land became valuable. We built a modest house there, 3 bedrooms, a small garden, and a kitchen where I cooked meals filled with love. Daniel grew up in that house. He studied at the same school where his father taught. He was a bright boy, always top of his class. We were so proud of him. When he got into Oregon State University for engineering, Robert and I took out a second mortgage and worked extra hours to pay his tuition. We didn't mind. Parents don't mind sacrificing for their children's dreams. After graduation, Daniel got a good job at an engineering firm in the city. He was earning well, and we were overjoyed. Our sacrifices had borne fruit. He was 26 when he told us he wanted to get married. We were thrilled. We wanted to see him settled, happy, starting a family of his own. Her name was Jessica. She came from a wealthy family in downtown Portland. She was beautiful, educated, and worked as a marketing manager at a tech company. When we first met her, she was all smiles and sweetness. She hugged us warmly, called me Mom with such affection, and praised everything about our home. I remember feeling a small unease in my heart, though I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was a mother's intuition. Maybe it was the way her eyes scanned our house, calculating, assessing. But I pushed those thoughts away. I told myself I was being unfair, that I was one of those typical mothers-in-law who couldn't accept any woman in their son's life. Robert liked her immediately. "She's perfect for Daniel," he said. Educated, successful, but still respectful of family values. The wedding was grand. Jessica's family insisted on it, and we didn't want to seem inadequate in comparison, so we spent almost all our savings on the celebrations. We took out another loan. We wanted Daniel to have the wedding he deserved, to start his married life on a happy note. After the wedding, Jessica moved into our house. That's when things began to change, slowly at first, like a disease that shows no symptoms until it's already spread through your body. In the first few months, Jessica was still playing her part well. She would help me in the kitchen, though I noticed she often made faces when she thought I wasn't looking. She would talk sweetly to Robert, but I caught the impatience in her eyes when he told his old stories. Then came the suggestions. "Mom, don't you think this sofa is too old-fashioned? Daniel's colleagues might visit. We should buy new furniture." "Mom, the kitchen counters are so outdated. Let me get them renovated. I'll pay for it, don't worry." "Mom, why don't you and Dad take the smaller bedroom? Daniel and I need more space. We're planning for a baby soon, after all." Each suggestion was wrapped in sweetness, in concern, in practicality. And I, foolish woman that I was, agreed. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted my son to be happy. I didn't realize I was slowly being erased from my own home. Robert noticed before I did. One evening, he said to me, "Margaret, I don't like how Jessica talks to you sometimes. Today I heard her snapping at you about the way you season the roast." I defended her. "She's young, Robert. She's adjusting to a new home. We have to be patient." "There's a difference between adjustment and disrespect," he said quietly, but I didn't listen. I should have. 2 years into Daniel's marriage, tragedy struck. Robert had a massive heart attack while grading papers one evening. We rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. He died within hours. My world collapsed that day. The man who had been my partner, my friend, my support for over 30 years was gone. I was shattered. But even in my grief, I noticed something that chilled me to the bone. At the funeral, while I sobbed uncontrollably, while relatives tried to console me, I saw Jessica whispering to Daniel. And on her face was not sadness, but something else. Something that looked almost like relief. After Robert's death, I fell into a deep depression. I barely ate, barely spoke. I would sit in the room Robert and I had shared holding his clothes, crying until I had no tears left. Daniel tried to console me in the beginning, but as days turned to weeks, even he seemed distant. It was Jessica who suggested I see a therapist. "Mom is not coping well," she told Daniel. "She needs help. Professional help." I went to the therapist. She prescribed medication for depression and anxiety. I took them, hoping they would ease the unbearable pain in my chest. But something else changed after Robert died. The house suddenly needed major repairs. The roof was leaking. It needed to be fixed immediately. The electrical wiring was old. It was a safety hazard. The fence needed reconstruction. "Mom, we need money for all this," Jessica said. "The house is in your name. Why don't you transfer it to Daniel? That way he can take out a home equity loan and we can do all the repairs." I hesitated. Some instinct told me not to do it. But Daniel sat beside me holding my hand. "Mom, it's not like I'm a stranger. I'm your son. Eventually the house will be mine anyway. This way we can maintain it properly now." I signed the papers. I transferred the house to Daniel's name. It was my biggest mistake. Things deteriorated rapidly after that. Jessica stopped pretending. She would openly taunt me. "Daniel works so hard all day, and then he has to come home and listen to his mother crying. How long will you mourn, Mom? It's been 6 months. The entire house smells like old person because of you. Can't you at least try to look presentable? I don't know why we're still keeping her here. She doesn't contribute anything, just sits in her room all day." I heard these words, but I felt numb. The grief medication made everything feel distant, foggy. I moved through my days like a ghost in my own home. But then something happened that jolted me awake. I overheard a conversation between Jessica and Daniel. I had gone to the kitchen at night to get water when I heard their voices from their bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. "How much longer, Daniel? I'm tired of pretending to care about that old woman. Jessica, she's my mother. Have some respect. Respect? She's served her purpose. The house is in your name now. The property deed is ours. What else do we need her for? What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying, maybe it's time she went to live in a senior home. Or with some relatives. There are options. Jessica, I can't just throw my mother out. Why not? She has her Social Security. She has her savings. She'll be fine. And we can finally live our life without walking on eggshells around her grief. There was a pause. Then Daniel spoke, and his words shattered whatever was left of my heart. Let me think about it. Not, no, never. Not, how dare you suggest such a thing. Just, let me think about it. I stood frozen outside their door, the glass of water trembling in my hand. My son, the boy I had carried in my womb, the child I had sacrificed everything for, was considering throwing me out of my own home. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, and for the first time since Robert's death, my mind was clear. The fog of grief and medication lifted, replaced by cold, hard clarity. If they were planning to betray me, I needed to protect myself. But how? I was an old woman with no power, no influence, no resources except a small Social Security check and modest savings. And then I remembered something Robert used to say. The truth is the most powerful weapon in the world. If you have truth on your side, you have everything. The next morning, I went to a small electronics store downtown. The young man there looked at me curiously when I asked for a small voice recording device. It's for recording my memories, I lied smoothly. I want to leave something for my grandchildren to remember me by. He sold me a tiny digital recorder, no bigger than my thumb. He showed me how to use it. It was surprisingly simple. Just press a button to record, press again to stop. I bought 2 more from different stores just to be safe. For the next 6 months, I became a spy in my own home. I hid the recorders in strategic places, behind the photo frame in the living room, inside the artificial plant in their bedroom, in the kitchen where Jessica often talked on the phone to her mother. I learned to move silently, to appear absent-minded and harmless while actually being hyper-alert. The grief medication actually helped. It made me seem even more vulnerable and oblivious than I was. And oh, the things I recorded. The conversations were worse than I had imagined. Jessica to her mother. Don't worry, Mom. Once we get rid of the old lady, I'll bring you to live with us. This house is big enough, and anyway, it should have been our family home from the start. Daniel to Jessica. My mother has about $80,000 in her bank account from my father's life insurance and savings. Once we have access to that, we can use it for the new Tesla we wanted. Jessica to her friend on the phone. I'm just waiting for the right time. Daniel is still a bit sentimental, but I'm working on him. Once his mother is gone, we'll finally have the freedom we deserve. The most damning recording came 3 months later. Jessica's brother Tyler visited, and I recorded their conversation in the living room while I pretended to nap in my bedroom. Tyler: So when are you executing the plan? Jessica: Soon. We've already convinced her to make Daniel the beneficiary on all her bank accounts. She thinks it's just for emergency access. The fool doesn't realize she's signing away everything. What about getting her out of the house? We're going to stage a big fight. Make it look like she's become impossible to live with. Maybe even suggest she's becoming senile. We'll get a doctor's note if needed. I have connections. Then we'll place her in the cheapest nursing home we can find. Once she's there, who'll care? Who'll listen to an old woman's complaints? They both laughed. The sound of their laughter on that recording still makes my blood run cold. As planned, Jessica escalated her torture. She stopped giving me proper food, serving me leftovers while the rest of them ate fresh meals. She accidentally threw away my medications, then blamed me for being careless. She spread rumors among the neighbors that I was becoming senile, that I forgot to turn off the stove, that I wandered around confused. Daniel watched all this happening. Sometimes I saw guilt flash across his face, but he never intervened. His wife had thoroughly poisoned his mind against me. The final act came on a cold January evening. Jessica staged a dramatic scene. She started screaming that her diamond necklace was missing, and she accused me of stealing it. "You're the only one who goes into our room. You took it. Admit it." I stood there shocked, denying it. But she had planned it perfectly. She called Daniel, crying, saying she had been suspicious for weeks that I was taking small things from their room. Daniel searched my room. And there, planted under my mattress, was Jessica's necklace. "Mom, how could you?" Daniel looked at me with such disappointment, such disgust. "I didn't take it. Daniel, please, you have to believe me." "I would never—" "Enough!" Jessica shouted. "I've tolerated enough. This woman has become a burden and now a thief. I want her out of this house, today." "Jessica, let's not be hasty," Daniel began. "No, either she goes or I go. Choose." And my son, my only child, the boy I had loved more than my own life, chose his wife. "Mom, I think it's best if you stay somewhere else for a while, until things cool down. I'll find a good place for you." "This is my house, Daniel. I built this house with your father." "The house is in my name now, Mom. Legally, I can ask you to leave." Those words were like a knife through my heart, but I had been preparing for this moment. I had my recordings. I had my evidence, but I wasn't ready to use them yet. I needed more. I needed the community to see, to witness, so I did what they wanted. I left. With just one suitcase of clothes and my small savings, I walked out of the house I had built with my own hands. Neighbors watched from their windows, whispering. Jessica had already spread the story. The old woman had become a thief, mentally unstable, impossible to manage. I found a small room in a weekly motel for the first few weeks. It was barely affordable on my Social Security, but I managed. I ate one meal a day. I wore the same 3 outfits, washing them in turns, but I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I was angry. And anger, I discovered, is much more useful than grief. I found work as a housekeeper in 3 homes. The work was hard for someone my age, but it kept me alive and gave me a purpose. More importantly, it gave me something else. Allies. One of the houses where I worked belonged to Mrs. Eleanor Whitman, a retired attorney. She was kind to me, often asking about my life. One day, while cleaning her study, I broke down. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the loss, the humiliation, crushed me all at once. Mrs. Whitman sat me down and made me tea. "Tell me everything," she said gently, and I did. I told her about Daniel, about Jessica, about how they had taken everything from me. And then I told her about the recordings. Her eyes widened. "You have proof? Actual recorded conversations?" I nodded and pulled out the small recorder from my pocket. I played her some of the recordings. As she listened, her expression changed from surprise to disgust to righteous anger. "Margaret," she said, "do you realize what you have here? This is evidence of conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse. With these recordings, you can not only reclaim your dignity, but also ensure they face consequences for what they've done. But who will believe an old woman like me? Everyone will believe you when they hear these recordings. But we need to be strategic. We need to plan this carefully." Mrs. Whitman became my ally, my advisor, my friend. She helped me understand my legal rights. The house had been transferred under pressure, possibly even fraud, shortly after my husband's death when I was medically documented as being under severe depression. The beneficiary designations I had signed for my bank accounts weren't legally binding transfers. The money was still mine until my death. But more than legal action, Mrs. Whitman taught me something crucial. In cases like this, social pressure is often more powerful than legal action. Your son and his wife care about their reputation, their standing in society. That's their weakness. We planned meticulously. First, I made copies of all the recordings. Multiple copies stored in different places. We had them transcribed by a professional service. We compiled everything into a dossier. Dates, times, contexts. Then we identified the key people who needed to hear these recordings. Jessica's parents, Daniel's close friends, our relatives, the neighbors, people from Daniel's office, and members of the homeowners association. But we needed the right moment. The perfect moment when the maximum number of people would witness the truth. That moment came 6 months after they threw me out. Daniel and Jessica were hosting a housewarming party. Yes, a housewarming party in the house I had built, celebrating their new life without me. They had renovated extensively. New furniture, new paint, new everything. Erasing every trace of Robert and me, Jessica had sent out invitations to everyone. Family, friends, colleagues, neighbors. It was going to be a big event. She wanted to show off, to establish herself as the lady of the house. Mrs. Whitman and I saw our opportunity. The day of the party, I dressed carefully. I wore my best dress, the blue one Robert had always loved. I did my hair. I looked dignified, respectable. Nothing like the broken woman who had left 6 months ago. Mrs. Whitman accompanied me. She was my witness, my support, my lawyer if things got ugly. We arrived at the party an hour after it started. The house was full of people, music playing, champagne flowing. Through the window, I could see Daniel and Jessica playing the perfect hosts, laughing, entertaining. I rang the doorbell. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Jessica opened the door. Her face went white when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "Hello, Jessica. I came to see my son, and to attend this lovely party in my house. This is not your house anymore. Leave or I'll call the police. Please do." I'd love to tell them my story. Daniel appeared behind Jessica. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk to you, Daniel." "To you and to everyone here?" By now the commotion had attracted attention. Guests were gathering, curious about the old woman at the door. Jessica's mother, Linda, pushed forward. "Who is this? Why are you disrupting our party?" "I'm Margaret Hayes, Daniel's mother. The woman who built this house with her late husband. The woman who was thrown out of her own home 6 months ago." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw confusion on faces, surprise, curiosity. "That's not true," Jessica said loudly. "She left on her own. She was becoming difficult, stealing from us." "Is that what you told everyone?" I kept my voice calm. "Then perhaps everyone should hear the truth." I pulled out a small portable speaker and the recording device. Mrs. Whitman stood beside me, her presence adding authority. "For the past 6 months before they threw me out," I said, addressing the crowd, "I recorded conversations in this house. I think everyone should hear what was really planned." "You can't do that," Jessica shrieked. "That's illegal. That's invasion of privacy." "In Oregon," Mrs. Whitman spoke up, her voice clear and professional, "only one party needs to consent to a recording. Margaret was part of all these conversations. The recordings are perfectly legal and admissible as evidence." I pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the air. "Once we get rid of the old lady, I'll bring you to live with us." The crowd went silent. I played clip after clip. Jessica's brother discussing the plan. Jessica talking about putting me in the cheapest nursing home. Daniel discussing my money. The fake theft accusation being planned weeks in advance. I watched faces in the crowd change. Jessica's parents looked horrified. Daniel's friends looked disgusted. The neighbors who had believed the lies about me looked ashamed. When the recordings ended, the silence was deafening. Jessica's father, Richard, stepped forward, his face red with fury. "Jessica, what the hell is this?" "Dad, it's not what it sounds like." "Not what it sounds like?" "I heard your voice. You planned this. You threw your husband's mother out of her own house. Do you have any idea how you've shamed our family?" Daniel stood frozen, his face ashen. For the first time, I think he truly understood what he had done, what he had allowed to happen. "Daniel," I said quietly, "I gave you everything. I loved you more than my own life. And you chose greed over your own mother. Mom, I didn't know it would go this far. You thought what? That I would just disappear quietly? That no one would ever know the truth?" One of the neighbors, Mrs. Patricia Chen, stepped forward. "Margaret, we owe you an apology. We believe the lies. We should have questioned, should have checked on you." Others nodded, looking ashamed. "The question now," Mrs. Whitman said, "is what happens next. These recordings are evidence of elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. We could pursue criminal charges." Jessica looked panicked. "Criminal charges? No, wait. However," I said, "I didn't come here for revenge. I came here for justice. I want my house back. I want access to my bank accounts restored. I want a public acknowledgement of what was done to me. And," Mrs. Whitman added, "we want a restraining order if necessary, and we want compensation for the emotional distress." The 6 months of hardship Margaret endured. Jessica's father pulled her aside, speaking in low, angry tones. Jessica was crying now, her perfect party, her perfect image, shattered completely. Daniel approached me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I was weak. I let her manipulate me. I should have protected you." "Yes, you should have. Your father would have been ashamed of you." He flinched as if I had struck him. "Is there any way? Can you ever forgive me?" "I don't know, Daniel. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But what I do know is that I will no longer be erased, silenced, or dismissed. I survived your betrayal. I documented your cruelty. And now everyone knows the truth." The party ended quickly after that. Guests left, many stopping to apologize to me, to express their disgust at what had been done. In the weeks that followed, things moved quickly. Jessica's parents were so horrified by their daughter's actions that they pressured her to cooperate. The house was transferred back to my name. My bank accounts were restored. Daniel and Jessica paid me $30,000 in compensation. Not nearly enough for what they'd put me through, but something. More importantly, the social consequences were severe. Daniel's colleagues distanced themselves from him. Jessica lost friends. The story spread through the community, and they became pariahs. The couple who threw out an elderly mother for money. Daniel and Jessica's marriage didn't survive. Within a year, they divorced. The stress, the shame, the guilt, it destroyed whatever they had built on lies and greed. Jessica moved back in with her parents, humiliated. Daniel moved to a small apartment. He tried to rebuild a relationship with me, but I kept him at arm's length. Some wounds cut too deep. I moved back into my house. Mrs. Whitman helped me find a good lawyer who ensured all my affairs were in proper order, with ironclad protections against anyone trying to take advantage of me again. 5 years have passed since that night. I still live in the house Robert and I built. I've made it truly mine again, put back old photos, planted Robert's favorite roses in the garden, created a space that honors our memories. Daniel occasionally visits. We're polite, cordial even, but the warmth is gone. He's remarried now, to a woman named Sarah who seems genuinely kind. She's apologized for things she wasn't even part of, which tells me she's a good person. Maybe in time, if they have children, I'll let those wounds heal enough to be a grandmother. But not yet. The pain is still there, a dull ache that never quite goes away. I've become something of a local advocate for elderly rights. I speak at community centers, warning other seniors about the signs of financial abuse, about protecting themselves legally, about trusting their instincts when family members start behaving strangely around money. Mrs. Whitman and I remain close friends. She's taught me so much about standing up for myself, about the power of evidence and truth. Looking back, I realized that my revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about revelation. I didn't destroy Daniel and Jessica. They destroyed themselves with their greed and cruelty. I simply made sure everyone saw who they really were. The truth, as Robert always said, is the most powerful weapon. And I wielded it with precision. I sleep peacefully now, in the house I reclaimed, with my dignity restored and my truth acknowledged. That's more than many people get in this life. They tried to erase me. They tried to take everything. But I'm still here. I survived, and in surviving, in fighting back, in refusing to be silenced, I won. That's my story. That's how an old woman, armed with nothing but 3 small recording devices and the truth, took back everything that was stolen from her. Remember this. You're never too old, too weak, or too powerless to fight for justice. You just need the courage to gather your evidence and the patience to wait for the right moment to reveal it. And when that moment comes, let the truth speak for itself. It's louder than any lies they've told.